Hello Flosstube and welcome back to my channel. I am Ros Clark. This is Ros Clark Craft here on YouTube. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook and Etsy, all as Ros Clark Craft. Welcome if you're new here. My minor influx of new subscribers continues apace. We're now at more than 950 subscribers, so we're definitely heading towards that £1,000. I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? 1,000 subscriber milestone, hopefully in the not too distant future. Thank you very much. Lots of people actually have given me, let me just do this, have given me lovely shout outs in the last few weeks, which has been really kind, and people have left really lovely comments. And yeah, I feel very loved and part of the community in the last few weeks, so that's been really nice. I had a particular thing this week which has been a special sort of part of the community thing, and I will tell you more about that later. So today we've got a Saviour's Praise. I'll talk about that in a minute. Last time I think I said I don't have any whips, and that is not true. I mean, it's not far off true, but it's not true. So I have got a couple of whips I'm going to show you. And I'm going to be talking about my plans, because now that a Saviour's Praise is not quite done, but will be done. When it is done, there will be some new starts, and that will be very exciting. So I thought I'd show you some of the things that I plan to start. There's a Camp Nobody Cares update, field trip, a little bit about the books I was doing this week. I've got another Just So Sherry. I can't bring myself to say that these are just so Ros. I'm like, I don't want to be the sort of person that these things happen to, but there is a thing that happened this week. I've got some plans for Camp Nobody Cares, the last 2 weeks of that, and there is a little bit of a life update at the end. It's been a bit of a week. Things have not precisely gone according to plan. Anyway, the first thing that did not go according to plan was a Saviour's Praise. So you may remember last week, I think I'd done sort of all the other bits, and what I had left to do was the Bible verse at the top and the hymn verse at the bottom. So I finished the Bible verse at the top, stitched that with the rest of the uniform blue that I had that was still blue, and that's a cottage garden thread in the middle for the He Loved Us, and fitted in the reference, and that all went fine and straightforward. Very happy. By Wednesday this week, I had charted the verse for the hymn at the bottom, and I had stitched half of it, and I had less than 1,000 stitches to go. Let me show you where that is up to now. So like I say, Wednesday, this was half finished. Yeah. And I would like to point out, I very much have a policy of not unstitching on this unless I absolutely have to. My stitching was perfect. But what had happened was I posted a picture of where I got up to, and then I had a message from the groom's mother to say, I think we might not have told you when the hymns changed. So the verse I had stitched, not in the hymn at the wedding anymore. My first response was, well, I'm not changing the stitching. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, I might change the stitching. So anyway, as you see, I've not restitched it. I have done the unpicking. I had 2 rows across there fully stitched. And on Wednesday, I'm like, shall I do a bit more? I'm like, no, it's fine. I can finish it on Thursday. Absolute latest, I'll have it finished on Friday. Yeah, no. So I have recharted and I've unstitched. And my plan is today, Saturday, when I'm filming, to work on that. If I need to, I'll do a little bit tomorrow and get that finished. The frame is due to arrive on Monday. So, we're still in good time to get it all finished and done and ready to give as a wedding present next Saturday. But I'm a bit annoyed about that because I should have had it finished by now, and I don't. And it's not entirely my fault that I don't. I did know on Thursday, I could have done the unstitching on Thursday and started restitching yesterday. But Thursday was not a great day, and I just wasn't in the frame of mind for it. And I hate unstitching. You know, I mean, I don't like it emotionally, but the physical process of it, I don't really enjoy. And I really, really didn't want to accidentally slip and cut a thread in the fabric by mistake. I'm like, I just need to do this when I'm a bit calmer. So I did all of that yesterday, and then today, as I say, I think I'm in a headspace to start restitching. It's fine. It'll be fine. I just feel like I've put so much work in to get to it to this point. I do want it to be right in the end. So it's fine, but it is not the finish I was hoping to be able to show you today. I won't be filming next weekend. I won't be filming obviously before I've given this away, but I will film a little bit that I will insert into a future video when I've got this finished, and then when I've got it fully finished. So you will get to see that, but it won't be next weekend. So that is the stitching and unstitching I have done in terms of cross stitch this week. I do have, like I was saying, I do have 2 other whips, and I thought I had one here. Okay, so one of them is this. Okay, so I think I've shown you that before. That is a Mill Hill kit jeweled pair that I started a few weeks ago when I was away. A Saviour's Praise has never been a travel project. So this was my travel project then. So I think probably the first thing that I will stitch when I am free to choose will be this. I think I've only got the beading left to do on this. So that'll be nice to get that done, but that's probably only an evening's work. The other thing which is in progress properly is not an evening's work. So this is my full coverage piece. So I started this in 2023 on my 49th birthday, and what I thought would be nice is if I could do this before, so while I was still 50, so that was the equivalent of 2 years. I'm now 52, so we've had, you know, 4.5 years, and this is where I'm at. Yeah. So I was just watching Just So Sherry this morning. She was asking, what's the most challenging thing you've ever stitched? I think we may have a contender. It's actually not that challenging. I use Markup RXP. I quite enjoy doing that. I find the way the Gecko Rouge threads are labelled and the symbols work not that difficult. It's just a lot. I don't love the confetti stitching. I think I'm stitching this, I can't remember if it's an 18 count Ada or a 20 count Ada from Roxy Floss, and I believe the colourway is called Razzmatazz. And I think it's working really well. I like the sort of pink undertones that it's giving. It works well with the colours of the kit. I've got a picture here, but it's this. This is Paxton's Tower and Cottage. The artwork is by Dorian Spencer. And you can see it's got that sort of pink undertone. And I am wondering, I may change my mind when I get to it, but I am wondering about leaving the sky and just having the fabric showing through at that point to save some stitching. I will, however, obviously be doing all of this. And this is where I've got up to at the moment, is sort of up to about half that house. So, I mean, it's not vast. When you see this, I don't think the stitch count goes all the way up to the top of this fabric. Let's work it out. Yeah, that's the top of the house. That's about halfway up. So it's more like that, and maybe that we've got to do. But nonetheless, it's fair to say the majority of the work is still to do on that. Now, I am not going to be picking that up straight away after I finish A Saviour's Praise. I think I'm going to leave it probably until 2027, at which point I want to pick it up and work out a plan to really make more progress on that. At one point last year, I think I was doing the first week of the month was all supposed to be on this. And that's not a bad plan, but you have to remember it every month, and I'm not very good at that. So we will see where we go with that. But those are the two things I've got that are genuinely in progress. The other thing I've got, which is sort of in progress, although not really, this came out 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a collaboration between Plum Street Samplers and Heartstring Samplery. And the half of the chart was this. One of the charts was this, Sting Like a Bee, which I stitched. And the other chart was this, Float Like a Butterfly, which I've not stitched. So I had, as you see, done Sting Like a Bee, and I'd arranged to take it, my copy of that chart, to Stitch in London that year and swap it with lovely Justine Stitching, who had stitched this, and we swapped the chart. And we also, because our two pieces, we sort of put them together on the brag table and we're like, actually they work really nicely. So we also swapped our spare pieces of fabric. So I think this is Fox and Rabbit ballet slippers that she had used, and this was Fox and Rabbit Up in the Attic. And they're not the same count. I feel like it might be a 32 and a 36. But actually they kind of worked quite well together. So that is the plan, is to stitch the other half, the other chart of that. So like I say, it is a finish, because, you know, this chart is a separate chart, but they will be joined together to display. So that is sort of in progress, and that's quite high up my list of things to stitch next. We're sort of moving from whips to plans at this point, and that is definitely an early-ish plan. So the Mill Hill is an early-ish plan, and the Plum Street Samplers Float Like a Butterfly is pretty high up the list. And then I was looking through, what have I got in stash, what do I want to stitch, and I'm going to show you some of the things I think are coming up. So some of these you've seen because they're relatively new. These are things that are coming up potentially that I've got in paper charts, and I am going to show you some of the PDFs I've got that are lined up as well. I much prefer a PDF. You can't always get everything in a PDF, and you know, that's how life is. So I think quite high up on the list to do next are these two. These are from Hands On Design, and we have Ladybug Picnic and Botanical Bee. There is another one in this series, but I don't think I'm going to do it because the finish that I've got planned for these, there is only space for 2. So I've got 2, and I'm going to do these 2. And I've got some lovely fabrics from Tom and Lily Creations in a sort of pink and a sort of slightly more aqua blue than this, but very much of the same kind of tone. And I think I'm going to use those, and I will pull threads from my stash. And I don't think either of these are huge. There's stitch count 67 by 65, 71 by 70. Yeah, they are not huge charts. And I'm very much feeling, after an enormous project, what I need is some small charts that I can finish. It's been really great to balance a Saviour's Praise with Stitch Quilt, because those are small things that I have been able to have a finish on as I've gone through. And as I say, I've also done some Mill Hill kits, and again, that small thing that with a finish I have really needed. But I'm really ready for just all finishes all the way at the moment. So I think those two will be pretty high up the list. What else? Oh, I've got another Hands On Design, which now, have I got the picture for that somewhere? I know I seem to have lost the bag for this chart. So there we go. The picture and the chart are in different places. This is You Had Me at Flamingo. And if you saw last week's video, you'll remember I went to the zoo and I saw flamingos, and they were all in this heads up looking around kind of pose. And it just reminded me of that. So I don't think I would do the alphabet bit at the top or even necessarily the borders, but I might just stitch those flamingos. And I might do, it's got all these little ones at the bottom, and I do quite like that little flamingo as well. So, and I was thinking, the flamingos that I saw, I don't think they had, I don't know what this is meant to be, a swan or something probably, but they had those bright red scarlet ibises, and so I might make that a bright red scarlet ibis with the flamingo. So I think those could be, again, that again could be a pretty quick, straightforward finish. Let me look, what's the stitch count on that? If I just did the flamingo bit, helpfully there are no numbers on the chart, so I will have to do some counting up. What does it say over here? 90 by 94, but I will only do, yeah, about 90 by 45, I think, 90 by 50. I think that could be quite fun. So I might be doing You Have Me at Flamingo. Some nice kind of summery ones to try and get in before the summer is over. Then what do I want to do? I've got another hands-on design, and I bought this a while ago, and I just think they're so cool. I would do different colours. I know, who else has been doing owls recently? I know Michelle from Mama Loves UGB had her Parliament of Owls series, but I feel like there's someone, is it maybe Tiny Modernist, doing owls with sort of flowers all over the place, which were very fun. But I really like these. They're stitching owls. It's called the Stitching Parliament, this chart. I don't think I've seen anyone actually stitching it. But I think they're super fun. And she shows them, you could finish them as stand-ups or finish them in a frame. But I've got a finish in mind for these. And each one is only 48 by 50. So they will be quick. I mean, there's sort of full coverage within that, but nonetheless, they are not huge stitches at all. So I want to do those. I think you're seeing a theme, sort of things that are bright and small and fun and entirely different from A Saviour's Praise. So I think those things are all pretty high up the list. Coming next after that, and I mentioned these certainly, I don't know, it was the last time or a time or two ago, I think I would really like to start an animal cracker. So I've got 4. I've got Millie the elephant, who will not look like that when I've finished her. She will not be muted greys and greens. I have got Lily. I love Lily. I love when people put sequins and sort of things. So, you know, Lily is going to have a fun dress. She may have the tiny spool, but she may not. Clovis. I do like Clovis's apron, and I really like her little teapot mini thing. And then this one is Pip. And I definitely want to do Pip, and I want to make Pip's little sort of home to live in. I'm not going to make that a needlebook. I'm going to make it a little sort of home for Pip. So those are the 4 that I've got. I have just signed up as well, actually, to go to the Stitchery Sisters for their workshop in October on animal crackers. Now, I think they've listed it as for Sugar, who is a skunk. I don't really want to stitch a skunk. So I've emailed them to say, please, could I do Olive the goose instead? So we'll see if they get back to me. I think it's fine as long as they've got Olive in stock, which I think they do. But we'll see which one I end up stitching there. But I do want there to be some animal crackers in the future, but they may not be immediate, but certainly this autumn. Other things that are kind of on my radar, I've got 2 Tiny Towns, I've got Quilted and Needleworkers. I think probably I want to do Quilted first. I really like the cow on Quilted, but I do like them both, and I will do them both at some point. And then these are getting into the slightly less likely range, and they may be done this year or they may not be. So these that I bought recently at the Festival of Quilts, those 2 Plum Street ones, in fact quite a number of these are Plum Street. This is the day. Stitchy Rach reminded me that I did want to stitch this. She stitched it a year or 2 ago. I do really love it, but it is big, 202 by 170. I won't be stitching this anytime soon. I've also got, and this might come sooner because this is only 86 by 61. I thought it was bigger, but actually it's still relatively small. And again, it's got a lovely cow. And I like, on the back of the chart, she's put Genesis 2 verse 20, and Adam gave names to all cattle. And so she's called this one Bavinia. But I quite like that. I might even put the verse reference on the front of that, because I think that's quite fun. So that's a possibility. And then the other one I'd like to get to soon is Wear It Well. This little one here. You can't say no to a tiara. I don't know if you can see that through the plastic. Let me take that. I mean, I sort of like all of it, but I really like that little one. How can you say no to a tiara? I mean, how can you? I don't know if there's a bigger picture of that. No. Let's see if you can see that a bit better. Yeah, there you go. So I'd like to do that little mini one. I mean, I would like to do all of them eventually, but that's the bit I want to do first. And that is only... Can't find the chart for it. Let's hope it has got a chart for it. Otherwise that would be disappointing. Oh, here we are. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Yeah, it's about 55 by 55, I think. I would need to actually count that properly. But it's, you know, it's not big. Yeah, there is several small charts in here. I'm trying to work out whether there is a stitch count somewhere, but I can't quite identify it at this point. Anyway, but it's not big. Maybe about 55 by 55, something like that. So there are those. And I've got quite a few things I want to stitch. But I've also got, I was looking at the PDF charts I've got. And again, I don't have loads. I try not to have a huge stash of things that I want to stitch, because I do find that slightly stressful. I have got other things than these, but they're not on my radar at this point at all. And so I was looking at the PDF charts that I've got in my to stitch folder, and there's about a dozen in there. But again, some of those are big projects that I'm not going to start anytime soon. One or two of them are much more seasonal projects. There's a couple of spring projects, for example, that I do want to do, but I'm not going to do them now. And then I remembered these. So there are 3, and they're all from a company called, I think it's Plastic Little Covers on Etsy. And I plan to stitch these and have them in my office. So I am doing my mediumist. I love that. I just love that. Sometimes I'm doing my best, and sometimes I'm really not. And sometimes I'm doing my mediumist. So I really like that one. I love this one. Please hesitate to contact me. Please hesitate. Please stop and think first. Please don't just get to... I hate it when people get in touch with me. If you need to get in touch with me, that's fine. But just hesitate first. Give yourself a moment and think about it. Do I really need to talk to Roz? If I think I want to phone her, could it be an email? If I think I want to email, could it just be a message? If I think I need to message her, could it wait till the next time? Just hesitate. Please hesitate to contact me. And then finally, all that she wants is another cuppa. I mean, that is almost always true in my life. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's a fair bet. Particularly if I'm, you know, seeming stroppy or grumpy. Probably I just need another cup of tea. So I think those would be a really fun set to stitch and display in 3 hoops in my new office. So I'd like to do those as well. But it's just been really fun to actually look through some things and think, right, rather than, no, I mustn't, no, I mustn't, no, I mustn't, be able to think, yeah, I could do that now. I could do that, and I could do that. I don't think I'm ever going to be the kind of person with, you know, multiple whips on the go. What normally suits me quite well is one slightly larger project, one smaller project. But all of these that I'm thinking of are quite small projects. So I might have 2 or 3 smaller ones on the go. But what I like is finishes. So I am really motivated by finishes. So I don't want to just be starting things. I want to be finishing things. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully by the next time I see you, some of those will have been started. It'd be nice to think the Mill Hill will certainly be finished, and maybe even 1 or 2 of the others. We will see. Yeah, some of the longer term projects, this is the day. The other longer term project in PDF that I do really want to do, but I'm not starting now, is Cherry Magpie. I mean, I've had that for, you know, since I first saw it years ago. I really love Jedek Stitch Designs aesthetic. I love the way she uses colour. I love the way her designs are very more is more. I love the way she uses geometric combined with florals and naturals. I love the sort of pop culture references that are in there, but also, yeah, I think she's brilliant. If she is the designer I would want to be. So I do want to get into stitching hers, but it probably won't be the first thing that I do. So I think that's all my stitching news. It's a little bit disappointing on Saviour's Praise. I was really hoping to have a finish to wow you all with, but I don't. But it's okay. We are not far off. Right, Camp Nobody Cares. Now, this has been an exciting week for Camp Nobody Cares. Let me show you my stickers. This has been week 4 for me, and I've given myself stickers for inspiration, teamwork, and field trip. And those are fundamentally all the same thing. Yesterday, Friday, I went to that London. It was incredibly hot. It was so busy. I don't really know why, but when I got to Euston, I mean, it was a lot busier than I would expect for a sort of middle of the morning on a midweek day in the school holidays. So I don't know whether there was something going on, but it was really busy. Really hot, really noisy, really dirty, really horrible. Got on a bus because I just couldn't face the underground. Got on a bus and I went to Bermondsey, because in Bermondsey there is the Fashion and Textile Museum, and I went to see this exhibition. But not just that, because you'll notice one of the stickers I gave myself, so obviously it was a field trip, one of the stickers I gave myself was teamwork, because, and this was so fun, I met Sarah from Penelope's Pocket, or you might know her as Ascanius on Instagram. She has been doing Camp Nobody Cares, and in one of her most recent videos, she talks about having not done a field trip, and she was like, I should just get on it. I should jump on a train to London and go and do something. So I messaged her and said, look, why don't we try and do a field trip together? And she was absolutely up for it, and she suggested this exhibition, and oh, it was just perfect. It was just perfect. Sarah, I had the best time. We both loved the exhibition. So it's a pair of sisters. I'm trying to make sure I get it the right one. I think it's Susan Collier and Sarah Campbell, but they were sisters, and they specialised in textile design and print. And the older one started off working at Liberty, and you'll know if you watch Sarah at Penelope's Pocket, she also used to work for Liberty, so you know she was incredibly familiar with a lot of their things. But then they got a bit frustrated because they felt like, you know, they weren't getting the credit for it. Their designs were coming out as Liberty designs, and they felt like they wanted to be known as themselves. So they set up their own company, Collier Campbell. They worked for all sorts of people. They did work for Jaeger, and they did work for John Lewis, and they did, I can't remember now, but a lot of places. And if you were around in the 1970s or 80s particularly, you would recognise some of their designs. I certainly did. I'm looking through and I'm like, oh, we had that on curtains in my school, and you know, oh, I had a bag with that on it, and that kind of thing. Yeah, they're very fun. The colours are, I mean, they do have some things that are in more muted colours and more browny kind of colours, but a lot of them are very bright and fresh. Slightly muted end of bright, you know, actually quite livable with, slightly greyed out, slightly pastel, but bright and fresh, and very much more is more was their philosophy. And you could see they had a wall sort of with a timeline over 6 decades, I think they have been producing things, and a sort of range of their kind of key designs from each decade. And you could really see the themes running through, the very strong sort of floral and natural and landscape kind of themes. One of their very famous prints is called Côte d'Azur, and you can see within that not just the sort of sea and the palm trees, but also things like the shape of the balustrades on the balconies, and yeah, so that sort of thing. But also then a strand running through of much more geometric, slightly geometric, very hand-drawn, hand-painted geometric, so not actually straight lines and rulers, but those drawn from various different cultures. So one of the first things you saw in the exhibition was some textiles I think Sarah had bought back when she was working at Liberty, and she was very inspired by, from places like Afghanistan and Tajikistan, and they had that sort of ikat weaving and lots of some incredible, very, very tiny patchwork pieces where the longest side was less than a centimetre. And, you know, so you can see some of those sort of triangles and lines and circles in some of their prints. And they form the sort of plainer, calmer backdrop to their really wild, over-the-top floral stuff. But they were not afraid of putting the wild with the wild, and it was really fascinating to see. What else did we see? So the one sister died maybe 10-15 years ago. The other sister has continued, and she has been doing some things where she's literally just painting the fabric, so not just painting a design that is then printed and made into fabric, but painting directly onto fabric. There was a piece she'd done where she'd painted, I think it was a very famous sermon after the death of George Floyd about, you know, you've got your knee on our necks, and she painted that, and it was very powerful, but also very beautiful, you know, natural scenes with flowers and birds and animals and all kinds of things. So it was really fun. They have a really nice big room that sometimes I've definitely been and done workshops in there in the past, but it was set up with displays of their bed linen sort of hung around the room, so pillows and duvets, and there was a video of some of their working process. But on the table they had set up various activities, which I think were probably aimed at children, but you know, so there was some colouring, and what they'd done is they'd printed shapes of some of the things that the designs of the sisters had been printed on, because they weren't just printed on fabrics in the end. They were on all kinds of homewares and made into all sorts of things. So they printed an outline of the jug and the vase and that kind of thing for you to colour in. But the one that Sarah and I sat down and did was the make your own temporary collage. And I thought this was an absolutely brilliant idea. And it actually really fitted with one of the bookwork exercises I'd been doing. So the temporary collage, there were laminated sheets that were the background. So they were striped or diamond patterns or had little stars on them or whatever. So you had a non-plain background. And then there was a box full of cut-out shapes in fun colours, and some of the paper was, I think it was probably cardstock, was spotted or had a chevron pattern on or rainbow coloured, and they were cut out in stars and circles and leaves and flowers. And so you just assembled your own collage, and you could play around with it as much as you like. You weren't sticking it down. And what they encourage you to do is take a photo and then send it and tag them in it, which I might try and do later. So yeah, it was just, I really love when you go to an exhibition and you feel really inspired by everything you see, where there is a moment where you can have a creative outlet. And yeah, I thought that was a really nice way of doing it. Nobody's getting messy. Nobody's got stuff they've got to take home. You know, nothing's having to be kept an eye on and replenished. You're literally just playing around with the shapes that are already cut for you on a laminated piece of paper that isn't going to break. So that was really fun. Anyway, here's mine. And here is Sarah's. So we really enjoyed that. Yeah, and the Fashion and Textile Museum, I don't know if you've ever been, it's not huge and they don't have a permanent display. They just have an ongoing series of exhibitions. And in fact, there were two on at the moment. And I was waiting for Sarah a little bit at the beginning, so I did just pop into the other one. It was okay. It was an exhibition of cushions with pin designs on them, and they were mainly things that you'd send home if you were a soldier in the First World War to your loved one or your mother or whatever. And so they're all terribly moving and affecting, but not massively interesting, I thought, from an aesthetic point of view. Anyway, but yeah, so sometimes they'll have a separate little one there, and occasionally they'll just have one and it takes over the whole thing. But it's not vast. You can go around it easily in an hour and a half, something like that, without feeling like you've missed anything. A very nice shop. Let me go and show you what I bought in the shop. You know, proper Flosstubers get all the stuff together before they start filming, but you know, It's fine, I'll edit it. It'll be seamless. You'll never know that I had to go and find my handbag with the bits in it. I always feel at the end of exhibitions there that the thing I really want to buy is fabric. I think the last one I went to was a Kay Facet exhibition, and I really was ready to come out and buy some Kay Facet fat quarters and start making things. And in the end, I think what I was able to buy was a tea towel. And it was a bit like that this time as well. I think there was tea towels and bags, and there were a couple of scarves, which I can't remember if they were Collier Campbell or not. But anyway, it was limited. But I bought this. So this is sort of a postcard, but also a lot of postcards. So you can either have it all together or you can tear them up. They had a number of these and I kind of wanted all of them, but I restricted myself. This is one of my very favourite prints that they did. This was called Tambourine, and I think that was maybe a 1980s print. Oh, well, I can probably tell you. This is Barge Roses, 1976. Woodland Glade, 1997. Tambourine, 1990. Okay. Leaf Dance, 1985. Crocus, 1975. And Foxgloves, oh, we've gone off the camera, 1974. But you can see, so these range between 74 and 1997, so that's 23 years. There's very much a style. This is not their only style, but, you know, this is one of their styles, and it very much is there. There's a continuity of work. So the thing which I'd seen beforehand, I'd seen an Instagram post, the buttons. So I bought 4 buttons, and Sarah bought a couple of buttons as well. So 2 of these have got, this is their Côte d'Azur print. Let me show you. Yeah, and you can see there's a sort of geometricness to that, but it is actually one of their landscape designs. If I hold that there, can you see here, this is the sort of window balustrade. Yeah, and they've picked bits, but you can just sort of see on the edge of this one, a little bit where the palm tree would be here. So I've got 2 of those and 2 of the floral ones. I can't remember now which floral patterns these are. I was going to show. But I just thought these would be lovely. I mean, they were a couple of pounds each. They're not super cheap, but lovely to stitch on a pillow or something like that. I'm not sure I would use them on a garment that is going to be washed regularly. They might be all right, but they could break. But I think as a little sort of decorative element on a pillow, I think they would be lovely. So we went around the exhibition, we went around the shop, we went and had a cup of tea, and then we chatted and chatted and chatted and chatted, and it was brilliant. And you know, we were talking about a number of things, but one of the things we were talking about is when we watch Flosstubers, or YouTubers generally, what we are interested in, both of us, is this somebody I'm interested in listening to? Because Sarah and I don't do a lot of the same stitching. She's been stitching stitch quilt, which is lovely. But we don't do a lot of the same kind of stitching. But I'm always really interested in what she has to talk about. I love her what she's wearing section. I love when she talks about old things. You know, she's doing her carpet python at the moment. I think that's an Elizabeth Bradley pattern, and I've done Elizabeth Bradley needlepoint back in the day. Both of us have been crafting for a similar length of time in similar kind of circumstances. You know, we were sharing stories about how, you know, when we were younger and you were knitting, you would buy your yarn on, or wool, as it, you'd always call it wool, whatever it was made of, on lay-by. So you'd look at your pattern and it would say you need 12 balls of Sirdar this or Wendy that. And so you'd say to the shop, right, can you put, you know, 12 balls on lay-by? I'll take 1 or 2 now. And you'd go back every week and get 1 or 2 more balls till you got to the end. And if there were, you know, a couple of spares, you'd say, I don't need those anymore. And so you'd only buy the amount that you wanted. It was brilliant. I don't know of any yarn shops that do lay-by anymore, but maybe there are. I mean, it'd be great if there were. There was that amazing one I went to in Paris where they do a lot of calculations for you based on your size and the yarn you're buying, and then they kind of wind off from the big cones exactly the amount of yarn that you need. But otherwise, most of us are left slightly guessing, And because you don't want to run out and not be able to get the same dye lot, you always end up overbuying, and then you end up with spare bits of yarn. So anyway, we were showing those kind of stories, and her mother, who used to be a seamstress who did alterations, and how she's so funny. She's like, so I can't do that at all, Rose, because I just would always give that to my mum to do. And sharing stories of how I didn't have that problem with my mother, because you would never give her some craft project to do for you. It was always safer to do it yourself. Yeah, all sorts of things. And anyway, it was absolutely lovely, and we have plans to do it again. I have just booked in, I think I may have got the last space on the, oh, I think I mentioned the Stitchery Sisters Animal Cracker workshop, and Sarah's going to be at that, so that'll be lovely. But you know, we definitely plan to do more things together in the future. You know, just somebody from watching her videos, I knew I would really enjoy spending time with, and I think she felt the same. I hope she felt the same. She very politely said she felt the same, but I'm pretty sure she did. So it was just lovely, and it was just the right amount of sort of inspiration, and not too long, because it was really hot. It would have been, I mean, it was nice and cool in the gallery, to be fair, but you know, I was not up for going around a lengthy exhibition, but it was just perfect. And then yeah, and then got the train home. So then I got home, and I was quite tired at the end of the day, so I just did the unpicking and didn't even start doing any sewing on that. Good. I can't quite remember what I was saying. A normal part of life at the moment is that my dad might be in hospital, and my dad is in hospital today, and that was just my mum phoning to tell me what's been happening. So everything has slightly gone out of my head. I think I might have been about to talk to you about book work this week. So one of the things I have been doing this week is continuing with an exercise from last week's book, which was a really fun exercise. It was cutting out shapes, so really simple shapes. I did some just with squares and some with leaf shapes, and then you cut those shapes in as many different ways as you like and sort of stick them down to see how much you can cut it before the original shape disintegrates, or interesting ways of kind of reconfiguring it. So you're putting it back into the shape, but just effectively with sort of lines. So you can see how, if you're building up into doing patchwork, it will be a sort of beginning way of thinking about that. Anyway, I really enjoy doing that, and I've done that a number of times, that exercise. And anyway, it just felt like it related when we were doing the collage, because you know, paper patchwork is just collage in the museum, so that was fun. But the books that I have sort of allocated for this week were these two books about bag making. I haven't done anything from them, and I'm not sure I'm going to at this point, but I have looked through them, and I've decided this one is going in the charity shop pile, but this one is staying. And I would recommend this as a book if you're interested in bag making. It's got a lot of useful stuff about techniques and materials, as well as projects, whereas this one really is just projects. And although they're quite fun, they're not necessarily things that I would want to make. So I think that one can go to a better home. Whereas this one is much more things I might want to make. You can see, you know, they're kind of bags using lovely quilt fabric, for example. Not all of them, but the bag that I do want to make, but I don't now know if I'm going to have time for, is something, it wouldn't be exactly like that, but not a million miles from that, using some of the duvet cover dress, duvet cover fabric, and make a matching bag for that. But yeah, there are definitely things in here that I might well make. But then there's a whole chapter on different kinds of closure and how do you insert them. You know, if you're doing zips, if you're doing snaps, if you're doing eyelets, if you're doing rivets, if you're putting a zip in the top, or if you're doing a concealed edge zip or a box top zip. Really useful things to know. I do like that bag, and I might well make that one day. Different kinds of straps with hook and rings, straps with two faces, open end straps, I don't know what they are, and adjustable straps, piped handles, ready-made handles, you know. And then this, which is the big sort of weekend bag. I wouldn't do it in that fabric, but I might well make a bag like that one day. In fact, I think I might have made one. maybe not that pattern, maybe a different one, but similar to that. So I think this is actually a very practical and usable book. Different ways of inserting pockets, slip pockets, bellows pockets, darted corner pockets, elasticated top pocket. So I'm definitely keeping this. It also comes with some patterns. But yeah, I'm going to get rid of the other one. I may or may not get to bag making in the next week. I definitely won't get to the bag I'd planned to make from the needlepoint piece that I'd got. If I make a bag at all, it will be duvet cover dress to go with the wedding outfit, but I may or may not get to that, as I say. So that was field trip, that was books, that's more or less everything I've done for Camp Nobody Cares this week. One other thing, actually this is a finish, and it is not the finish I would have liked, it is not a Saviour's Praise, but it is this. So I've not made this dress, this is a dress that I bought, but I have blinged it up with a whole lot of sequins to wear at the pre-wedding Indian party that I am going to next week, and I'm very pleased with how that's turned out. The sequins will be easy to remove for, you know, it's just a sort of cotton dress, and you know, I would wear it as a pretty normal summer dress, to be honest, without the sequins, so they will be easy to remove for that, but I think that just adds a little bit of appropriate sparkle for an Indian jago next week. So that I think really is Camp Nobody Cares that I have done, but I do have plans. So the rest of the video is all plans really, and a little bit of life. So next week's plan, the field trip, is really the wedding, but there is parts of that, in particular the henna painting on Wednesday. I feel like that's going to be a very inspirational field trip, and probably the Indian party on Friday as well. I think that's going to be very fun. I will see if I can take some photos, but I'm bad at photos and remembering, so I may or may not. So that is going to be the field trip for that week. For the following week, which will be my final week of my Camp Nobody Cares, I want to go to the Forge Mill Needle Museum. The Forge Mill Needle Museum is in Redditch in Worcestershire. I've been trying for ages to persuade a friend of mine to come with me, and none of my friends seem to think they're interested in needle museums. I don't know why. So at the moment it's just me, and that's fine. But if you go as a group, you can sometimes arrange to also have a tour of the John James Needle Factory that is next door. So I just throw this out there. If you would like to go to the Needle Museum and the John James Museum, John James Needle Factory, and you are free sometime in the week beginning August the 24th, let me know. I can't remember how many you have to get for a group. I think it might be 8. So, it's, you know, it's a little bit of a shot in the dark, but if we get 8 of us, I will endeavour to contact them and see if we can arrange a factory tour. I don't know, obviously, you know, there must be limits on how and when they do factory tours. So I don't think it's a dead cert, but if I can say, yes, there are 8 of us and we're all free on whatever day it is that week, is there a possibility of a factory tour? I will find out, and we could do that. Otherwise, I mean, you're welcome to come and just go around the Needle Museum with me, but I think it'd be really fun. Don't you think it'd be really fun to go around the John James factory? I love John James needles. I'm sure you can buy John James needles there. John James have just recently announced a limited run of their petite 26 and 28 cat needles, and I do want to get some of those. Anyway, it's in Redditch in Worcestershire. There's the museum, there's nice sort of grounds, there's an abbey, old sort of ruined abbey, there's a cafe, and like I say, there is the John James factory. Let me know if you might be available and up for that. So those are my field trip plans. Other plans for this coming week, I'm not going to try and do a book project this week. For the one after that, I've got a book called Drawn to Stitch that I'd like to get out and have a look through and decide if I want to do exercises from that. In terms of focus project, I mean, this week, disappointingly but true, it does still need to be a Sadie's Praise, and also the duvet cover dress needs finishing. If I have time, there'll be a matching bag with that. And I think there's a lot going on this week. Indian weddings are long multi-day events. I'm not going to everything, but I'm going to quite a lot. There are also some stuff with my family going on that I need to be at. There's possibly a work thing that I need to go to in Essex, which I could really do with trying to get out of that next week, and I might see if I can. But there's quite a lot going on, so there's not going to be loads of time for summer camp. So if I can get the things done that need to be done by the wedding, that is really the big goal. The following week, I probably will start doing some cross stitching again, because all the wedding stuff will be done. A Saviour's Praise will be done. But I do have one other focus project that I'd really like to get done that week. So I thought I'd show you that. So this is a project I started in 2024. I went on a holiday with this lovely company. I've been on several holidays with them, Creative Experiences. They're not cheap, but they are brilliant. They are so lovely. And the holidays they organise are just really fun. And I love it. It's so relaxing because Nadine and Mark organise everything. And so you just have to get yourself to the airport and then you just are on holiday. You don't have to worry about anything. Anyway, so this was in Tuscany. And the tutor that week was Kate Barlow. Kate is a graduate of the Royal School of Needlework and teaches at the Royal School. And it was you could choose any one of her kits, and I chose this one. It's called Little Elizabethan Stork. The design is taken from a pair of embroidered 17th century gauntlet gloves. He has worked in silk floss on a silk duchess satin ground, stands on a hillock of blue laid work surrounded by silk flowers, gilt tendrils and gilt cutwork leaves. Tiny spangles are added for extra sparkle before adding a frame of looped couching and cutwork corner decorations. So you can see there's the silk embroidery, all the colour bits, and then the rest of it is gold work. So I got quite far in that week, and I really felt like I'd got to the point where there was maybe an afternoon and an evening, or maybe one full day's work left at most. Surely I would do that as soon as I got home. Ha ha ha. 2 and a bit years on, this is where we still are. There you go, you can see the gold glittering. So I've done all the silk work, and I have done most of the gold work within this shape. You can see there's a leaf here still to do, a leaf here, a leaf here, and the centre of this flower. And then what I have to do are these 4 corner bits and that kind of looped edging around. Yeah, a few hours work, maybe a day's work at most, 2.5 years. So I'm going to finish the Little Elizabethan Stork. That is my plan, my focus project for the final week that I am doing Camp Nobody Cares. The last week in August, I really want to finish that because it's gorgeous. It's such a fun design. And I think I've got a box that I think this will fit on top of. So I think that's how I plan to finish it. But we'll see. You can see the shape is not rectangular. It goes out and then in because of, I assume, the sort of gloves that it was from. So I just need to check that the box will fit at the widest length. And if not, I'll have to think again how to finish it. But I mean, I look at it and I'm really proud that I did that. All that laid work and the silk shading and what else has it got on there? Some stem stitch and the gold work that I did already. I'm really proud of. Yeah, the gold work that I really enjoyed doing was, you can see on these leaves, if it will focus, and you've got this kind of gold thread that's twisted, and you cut lengths that are exactly the right length to fit across the leaf and couch them down in rows. I mean, I've got all the bits here. In fact, I was talking to Sarah about goldwork because she's going to do a class at the Royal School on goldwork. And it is definitely something I would recommend doing as a class, at least to begin with, because you do need many, many different bits. So mine had number 4 gilt passing thread, 2mm spangles. Then we've got all the different colours of silk. Then we've got number 7 tambour thread. Then we've got, you know, 2 other things in here. Then we've got number 8 bright check. 3 different needles. In fact, there should be 4 different needles. I don't know where the other one is. Oh, there it is. That's fine. You know, some wax. So you might have beeswax. Anyway, you need a lot of different bits, is my point. And it is quite specialist. And if you want to have a go before investing quite a lot of money, I would say it's definitely worth doing a course or getting a kit, but really doing a course, to be honest. I mean, you can buy kits from Kate which have everything in. I think the only thing I had to provide was a pair of scissors, and with goldwork, normal scissors work perfectly well, although you can get, and I have got, a specialist pair of goldwork scissors, but what you want is to use not a pair that you are going to go on and carry on using for fabric or floss, because it will blunt the scissors using on the gold. Corey's Little Creations, by the way, Letitia from Corey's Little Creations, she sells, I mean, I first came across her, I got an advent calendar from her several years ago, before she really moved into the cross stitch world, and it was a goldwork kit, and I have got quite a lot of goldwork stuff from that. It wasn't just goldwork, it was a mix of things, but I have got quite a lot of goldwork stuff from that. And so if you're looking for goldwork materials, she's a good place to look. The other person to look at is Jenny Aiden Christie, and I've mentioned her before because she sells a Versoir 103s. I think she's the best stockist of those in the UK, but she also will sell the specialist tools for something like this. I'm not sure it's a thing that I'm going to do a lot of in my future, so for me, finding a kit that I like and just using materials from the kit is probably the best way forward. But now I've got all those things from Corey's Little Shop, I ought to find a way of using those one day. So that is my focus project for that week. Oh, here we go. There's even more bits of threads in there. That's my focus project for that week. I've talked about the field trips for that week and the book for that week. So I think the only thing that I have at this point, I didn't do my Just So Sherry moment. I will do my Just So Sherry moment. And then there's a little bit of a life update. So when I was waiting for Sarah at the Fashion Textile Museum, I had got there a little bit early. So I went to the loo, and as I was in the toilet, my phone rang, and I assumed, oh, it must be Sarah phoning to let me know either she's running a bit late or she's on her way or whatever. So I sort of scrambled to get my phone out of my bag, answered it, and then suddenly realised that whoever it was calling on FaceTime. I never FaceTime. It just wouldn't occur to me that that's the thing you'd do. And I was on FaceTime, and I'm like, I wasn't completely undressed, but you know, I wasn't entirely dressed in a way I'd like to be when I'm on the phone with somebody who can see me. There were definitely pants visible. I'm not sure there was more than that, but there were definitely pants visible. So I'm slightly panicking, and I say hello and nobody's answering, and I'm like, all I can try to do is try and turn off the camera and, you know, into this kind of absolute panic moment. Anyway, managed to turn it off, finish everything, get back out, and I checked. I'm like, that wasn't Sarah's number. You know, I'd not called her at all at that point, but she'd given me her number. We'd exchanged numbers, you know, just in case there was an issue on the day. And I'm like, well, that's not Sarah's number. I don't know whose number that is, but I'm not calling back a random person saying, hello, did you just FaceTime me and get a you know, full-on view of me in my knickers? So I don't know. I assume it was a scammer. And they were treated to a picture of me in my knickers, and may never recover from that. I mean, if it was a scammer, I'm glad that's what you got. Serves you right, because I promise you, nobody is fantasizing about seeing me in my knickers. I mean, it's not a pretty sight. Yeah, honestly, that is not the sort of thing that normally happens to me. But I feel like it would be an entirely appropriate Just So Sherry story. So I'm claiming it's not Just So Roz. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe that is what my life is becoming. But it is my Just So Show. Anyway, I checked with Sarah later and she's like, no, that definitely wasn't me. And I'm like, okay, good. You know, and I kind of thought, well, maybe her husband's bringing her, maybe that's his phone and I just flashed him. And anyway, I don't think it was anyone that knows me. It might be. I mean, what if it was like a work person trying to contact me? Hesitate. Please hesitate to contact me. That's all I have to say about that. And there is good reason to hesitate. There we go. That brings that all together. Anyway, it's been an odd week. I will tell you that. On Sunday evening, I was feeling a little bit miserable. So I was just like, I just need to go and look at some pictures of cute puppies on the internet. So I went and looked on Pets for Home, which, you know, it's not an utterly disreputable site, but it's not Kennel Club licensed breeders, shall we say. But, you know, it's full of warnings, you know, how to buyer beware, all that kind of thing. But I'm like, well, I'm not looking to buy a puppy. I can't afford a puppy. I don't really want a puppy. I want a dog, but I don't really want a puppy. I just want to look at some cute pictures. So I'm looking at some cute pictures. Charlie, my best boy, he was a Lhasa Apso, so I'm really looking at Lhasa Apso puppies. And I came across this listing, not for a puppy, for a 3-year-old Lhasa Apso. I'm like, well, I'm interested in a 3-year-old Lhasa Apso. In Coventry, so it's not right around the corner, but it's not the other end of the country. It's about an hour and a quarter to Coventry. Okay. Lots of pictures, 3 or 4 pictures on the listing of this very happy, healthy looking little dog who is adorable. 3-year-old Lhasa Apso. Need to rehome him because of a change in working conditions, which I interpreted as no longer working from home, which is perfectly reasonable kind of thing you can imagine would happen. You have a dog, you love your dog, but suddenly you can't work from home. What are you going to do about the dog all day? And, you know, maybe you get dog sitters in and dog walkers in, or maybe you just say, do you know what, it would be better for the dog to be with someone who's not out all day. So they weren't asking very much money for it. They were asking £200, a lot less than a puppy, which is what you'd expect. Less than you'd expect for rehoming. I'd really expect to be seeing £400, £500, £600. But I can kind of see if you are people who really loved your dog and really just wanted to find a new loving home for your dog, you wouldn't be particularly in it for the money. You might put quite a low price. Anyway, I messaged, is your dog still available? Wake up the next morning. Yes, absolutely. You know, tells me all about it, blah, 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 blah. You know, can you take it? Can we take this to WhatsApp? Gives me his number. That's one of the things you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to keep messaging on the site. But I'm like, okay. You know, and we're chatting on WhatsApp and he's sending me more photos of the dog. He's asking me, what's my experience looking after dogs? You know, what sort of home would I be able to give it? You know, who would be looking after the dog? How long would the dog be left? All the kind of things, you know, a reliable dog owner would want to know. I sent him some photos of Charlie. You know, this is the dog that I had, that I'm really looking for another dog. It was a Lhasa Apso, so that's great. You know, are there any issues with, you know, how is he with other dogs? How is he with children? How is he with grooming? You know, all this stuff. He'll be brilliant. You know, lovely, happy dog. They sent a photo which absolutely melted me of him surrounded by his toys. You know, if you want me to take the listing down, Roz, you know, you could give me the deposit today. The day when I have a day off is Thursdays, so, you know, you're welcome to come and see him on Thursday. But if you want me to take the listing down before then and pay the deposit, that's fine. I'm like, okay, I think I do. So I sent £50. Slightly alarm bells ringing. Could you send it to my son's bank account? I only have a business bank account. You know, this is the bank account. So I'm like, that's slightly odd. Google the name of the account he wants me to send it to. Nothing comes up with any kind of red flags. Reverse image search on some of the dog images. Nothing's coming up. You know, AI is like that. Looks like it's a Lhasa Apso, but, you know, it's not clearly a photo taken from Google image search. So I'm like, okay, it's 50 quid. You know, that's fine. And he's like, do you want me to do the microchip thing now? I'm like, no, let's wait till I've met the dog. And I said, I can't take it for a couple of weeks because I'm really busy next week. I've got a conference first week in September. I'd want to come and pick him up to take him after that. But obviously I want to come and meet him before that. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. We can sort out anything else we need to sort out when you come on Thursday. And then obviously you pay the deposit, pay the rest of the balance in cash when you pick the dog up. Okay. Seems reasonable. There's a nice photo of him on his WhatsApp profile with his wife. At one point he's like, okay, let me just check my wife's okay with this. Yeah, she says that's all fine. It felt a little bit at various points as though the conversation was AI, but also in the first message he sent me on the Pets for Homes website, the spelling wasn't great. WhatsApp came out as WOTS app, and I'm like, that's fine. You can be a perfectly legitimate person who loves your dog, who struggles with spelling and communicating in written form, and therefore you're using ChatGPT to help you write this. I'm not going to be prejudiced and say therefore this is a problem. So I'm very excited. If I had to say what would be my dream for a new dog now, it would have been a Lhasa Apso, 2 to 5 years old, happy, healthy, just needed rehoming for something like a change in work of circumstance. There's always trauma in rehoming, but a dog that's been rehomed from a secure, safe, happy home is less traumatized than a dog who's suffered other kinds of trauma there. And at a price I can afford. I can't afford £1,000 for a dog. I might be able to afford £500 for a rehome dog, or the rescue that I got Charlie from, they charge £400. I could probably just about do that, but a dog for £200, I'm not going to say no to that. So Thursday morning, we'd had a long meeting with my mum and the social worker and the manager of the care home about my dad. We're just at the point where we need the council to start paying for him. So it's quite long, and it was a little bit stressful because it's not a dead cert that they will pay to keep him in the home that he's currently in. And, so we're trying to explain all the reasons why we think that's a good thing. And, she was great and she was very understanding. But she's like, I can make the best case I can for you, but I can't guarantee. If they find somewhere cheaper, they might want him to move there. And we're like, we really don't want that to happen. And, so it was all quite long and stressful. And they're like, but that's fine, because now what I'm going to do is drive down to Coventry and go and meet my new dog. So I drove down to Coventry. Failed to read completely the WhatsApp message. So I did knock on the wrong door to begin with. I knocked on number 23 and I'm looking at the thing and it's a chap answers the door. He's got no idea what I'm talking about. And I look at the thing and I'm like, it says number 73. Don't mind me. So then I went to number 73, knocked on the door, very excited. This old Indian chap answered the door, clearly not the person who had been on the WhatsApp profile, who's, white middle-aged guy with his wife. Clearly not this person. I'm like, okay, do you know Mark? No. Do you have a dog for sale? No. This is your address? Yeah. Right. Interesting. So at this point, I'm still trying to want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I'm like, maybe there's a typo in the house number. So I rang via WhatsApp, nothing. Tried phoning, on a normal mobile phone call, the number, nothing. At this point, I noticed the photo has disappeared from the WhatsApp messages. There's no dog, is there? There's no dog. Anyway, the bank were brilliant. The bank refunded me the thing. When I phoned them up, they were like, and explained what happened, they were like, yeah, clear and obvious scam. That's absolutely fine. We can reimburse you. And indeed, within a couple of hours, the money was back in my bank account. So I've not lost any money. I've lost a couple of hours driving to Coventry, but I, stopped in and saw some friends on the way home. It's not the worst thing. Really what I've lost is 3 days of hope and excitement. I've been happier this week than I've been in a long time. Life is quite difficult at the moment. I am really on the edge of burnout with work. with stuff with my parents is hard. Losing Charlie has been awful. You know, there are, all sorts of things going on. And I sort of knew it was too good to be true, but I wanted it to be true so much. Anyway, it was too good to be true. Moral of the story is, if it says don't take the messaging off the website, don't take the messaging off the website. You could even do your payment through the website. Should have done it. Should have said, I'm not giving you any money till I see the dog. Frankly, I'll bring £50 in cash and give you the deposit when I've met the dog. Anyway, it's fine. But, you know, my mum is like, oh, it's so cruel and you must be heartbroken or whatever. And I'm like, I am sad and I'm disappointed. I'm really angry. But it's not like losing Charlie. I mean, that was heartbreaking and that has been awful. And months on, it's still awful. This is a dog I never met. And yes, he was lovely. And he looked perfect. And I was very excited about having a new dog. But I'm not heartbroken over a dog I've not met before. Anyway, I am now looking more actively. Previously, I was trying to not look. And now I am looking quite a lot more actively for a new dog. But it's complicated. You know, I don't want a puppy and I can't pay for a puppy. So I am really looking at rescue dogs. And, you know, there was one, my lovely, lovely groomer had suggested a place to look, and they had one who was a Jack Russell Poodle cross. She seemed very sweet, so I contacted them. Already rehomed. That's fine. You know, I do have criteria. I can't have a big dog. Can't have a dog who needs 2 hours exercise a day. You need a dog really who can travel with me. I need to be able to leave the dog, but I need them to be able to come with me as much as possible. So I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a new dog or not. I think there will be, but clearly not right now. It's been rubbish. So that's why I wasn't doing any stitching on Thursday evening, because I was still a bit kind of, all over the place from that. Anyway, these things happen, don't they? I hope you've had a better week than I have. What else was I going to say? I don't know. I won't be here next week. I will be here in 2 weeks' time. I'll have all the goss on the wedding. Hopefully I will have a finished A Saviour's Praise to show you. And hopefully I will have this finished to show you. It's on a thing. It's got a seat stand, but I kind of like that you can just hold it on its stick and wave it around. And I guess there'll be a roundup of Camp Nobody Cares and where I might be going next with that. I don't think I can continue doing it in the way that I have been focusing over the summer, but I do want to stop and think a bit more about how I consciously plan the creative time in my life, because it's been such a good thing for me. It was lovely talking to Sarah and hearing her say how good it's been for her. And I think, you know, in general, having plans, even if you don't stick to them, there's something about that. I don't then waste the time thinking, what am I going to do now? I know what I'm going to do, so I get on with it. And I think that's been really helpful for me. Anyway, let me know if you've been doing Camp Nobody Cares, if you wish you'd been doing Camp Nobody Cares, if you have ideas about how you schedule and plan your creative time in your life. Let me know if you've got a little dog that needs rehoming, or if you know of one, I guess. Genuine offers, all welcome. And I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.